Good morning, everyone. If I can get your attention, it is 9:30. I'd like to start this meeting on time. For those of you in the back, for those of you who are part of staff or members of the community, if you'll please take a seat. Can they hear me? I'll need somebody to.
Is there a mic check here in the room, please? Can you hear the chair?
Can you hear me okay? If I could have the folks in the back, if you'll please take a seat. Thank you. All righty, good morning, everyone. Today is Thursday, April 4th, 2024. Prior to calling the meeting to order, I would like to ask any Transportation Committee members who are calling in by phone to identify themselves. Okay, not seeing any hands at this time. As a reminder, if a member of this body is attending remotely, but is not at a location specified on the agenda, they may observe and comment as a member of the public, but may not participate in any member discussion or voting of this body. The meeting of the Transportation Committee is now called to order. I've asked Ray Marquez of Chino Hills to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We are holding this meeting in compliance with Brown Act rules relating to telephonic video conference meetings. SCAG offices are open for members of the public to attend and participate in person. Instructions for providing public comment have been provided in advance and are also included in the agenda pack. Just a reminder to reduce noise, please ensure that your microphone is muted when not in use. This time, I'd like to now open the public comment period of the meeting. This is the time for members of the public to offer comment for matters that are within SCAG's jurisdiction, but are not listed on the agenda. Staff, have we received any written public comments after the deadline of 5 p.m. on Wednesday, April 3rd, 2024?
Good morning, Mr. Chair. We've received no such comments.
Very good. Do we have any members of the public who wish to speak? I am not seeing any. Very good. All right, I will now close the public comment period for matters not listed on the agenda. I would like to remind everyone to unmute your phone before speaking and state your name during deliberations, and whether making a motion or offering a second. For those who have joined by phone, you simply press *6 to mute and unmute your phone. So we are now with the election of the Transportation Committee Chair and Vice Chair. Do we have any members of the public who wish to speak on this item? I am not seeing anyone. Anybody from any of our, okay, well, let's go ahead and start with our in-person Transportation Committee members. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Ruben.
Okay.
Because I think I'm in.
Yeah.
I think I may have nominated myself.
I think you may have something to say about this. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. This is Ruben Duran, Board Counsel. As you may have noticed, SCAG staff emailed each of you some time back informing you of the deadline to nominate a member of your committee for the chair position for the coming year. That deadline was March 28th. Prior to the deadline, staff did receive one nomination, and that is for the Honorable Tim Sandoval to continue as chair of the committee. Our rules do allow, however, for nominations from the floor. So very quickly, let me just tell you how that works. Any member of the committee may nominate another member for the chair position. That nomination does not require a second. Additionally, you may nominate yourself if you would like to be considered by the committee for the chairperson position, excuse me. Mr. Chair, at this time, with your permission, I'd like to open the floor. If there is a member of the committee here in the room who wishes to nominate themselves or another member of the committee, please indicate your desire to speak by raising your name tag so that we can see you. I'll take just a quick minute to scan the room, and I see no name tags raised. So I will open it up to the members of the Transportation Committee who are joining us by Zoom. Please indicate your desire to be noticed by raising your hand virtually, or just speak up if that's easier for you. Okay, we see no hands online. which means there is one nominee on the floor for the chair position. That is you, sir. If you'd like to speak to the committee before we take the vote, this is your opportunity.
I'll be incredibly brief. This is actually my second year. I was a vice chair under the leadership of Chino Hills mayor at the time, Ray Marquez, and now I'm in my first year as chair. And as you know, it takes a long, long time to figure out this job. So I'm certainly looking forward to, as you might say, a second term. But I'll just say this, that I appreciate SCAG because it brings us together across the region. And we all know that we, in many respects, have very different political views. But this gives us an opportunity to really sit down together and try to figure out how are we going to address policy issues across the region. And I appreciate that. And I always appreciate the civility that we demonstrate here at SCAG. So just appreciate the support. And assuming no one else steps up in the next few seconds, I look forward to a second term as Transportation Committee Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If there is no other comment from anyone on the committee. Thank you. I hear a motion to approve.
I wonder if we could, we'll have to do a roll call, won't we? Can
We
we
will have
take
to do a
them
roll
both
call.
at one time, perhaps? Or we can't?
We can, however, the position of vice chair does have more than one nominee. And so we will require a little bit of a different process for that vote.
You think we could handle it?
I think
Just
so.
doing them together?
Well, certainly,
I have great.
Mr. Chair and leadership.
I
of
would
the
recommend we separate them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I heard a motion. I apologize. I did not catch from whom the motion came.
Nazarian, Beverly.
Thank you, Member Nazarian. Is there, and I also heard a second. I think it might have been here in the room, Mr. Marquez. At this time, I'll ask the clerk to take the roll. This is simply a yes or no vote for the chairman position for Mr. Sandoval.
Ashley Aiken. Adele Andrade Stadler. Constantine Anthony. Catherine Barger. Elizabeth Becerra.
Yes.
Brian Berkson. Russell Betts.
Yes.
Daniel Brotman. Art Brown.
Aye.
Jeanette Burns. Ross Chan. Denise Delgado.
Yes.
Andrew Doe. Jonathan Dumitru. John Dutre.
Yes.
James Gaisley.
Aye.
Jason Gibbs. Kurt Hagman. Jan Harnick.
Yes.
Laura Hernandez.
Yes.
Lauren Hughes Leslie.
Yes.
Heather Hutt. Mike Judge.
Yes.
Fred Jung. Trish Kelly.
Yes.
Paul Krikorian. Linda Krupa.
Yes.
Thank you. Received Bridget Lewis. Malcolm Lilienthal.
Yes.
Richard Loa.
Yes.
Clint Lowermore. Ken Mann.
Sorry, go ahead.
Ken Man, yes.
Thank you. Received for Mann, Steve Manos,
Aye.
Ray Marquez,
Yes.
Larry McKellen,
Yes.
Marsha McLean,
Yes.
Tim McOsker,
Yes.
Dennis Michael,
Yes.
Linda Molina,
Yes.
Carol Moore,
Aye.
Ara Najarian,
Yes.
Maria Nava Frolik,
Aye.
Frank Navarro,
Yes.
Sharona Nazarian,
Yes.
Gil Rebolar, Ed Reese, Celeste Rodriguez,
Yes.
Crystal Ruiz,
Yes.
Ali Saleh,
Yes.
Tim Sandoval,
Yes.
Suli Sorrow,
Aye.
Zach Schwank,
Yes.
Marty Siminoff,
Yes.
Jeremy Smith, Ward Smith,
Yes.
Jose Luis Salache, Hilda Solis, Wes Speak,
Aye.
Karen Spiegel,
Yes.
Cynthia Sternquist, Steve Ty, Michael Vargas,
Yes.
Scott Voigt,
Voice, yes.
Donald, thank you, Donald Wagner,
Wagner, aye.
Colleen Wallace,
Yes.
Alan Wapner,
Yes.
Thomas Wong, Jeff Wood.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The motion passes 44 in favor and 0 against.
Thank you. And thank you, TC members. Much appreciated. Let's go ahead and move on to, thank you, Jan, for the, all right. All right, Ruben. Let's
Thank you,
move on to
Mr. Chair. Congratulations and thank you for your continued service. We'll move on to the position of Vice Chair. Similar to what I mentioned for the chair position, by the deadline, staff did receive 2 nominations for that position. They are the Honorable Mike Judge from the City of Simi Valley and the Ventura County Transportation Commission position, and the Honorable Ali Saleh from the City of Bell, Regional Council District number 27. Again, similar to what I just mentioned for the chair position, a member of the committee may nominate either themselves or someone else from the floor. So, Mr. Chair, with your permission, I'll open it up here in the room to see if there are any nominations from the floor for a 3rd or 4th nominee or more. I see none. I've got 2. Okay, thanks, Mr. Chair. We'll open it up to those participating remotely. If you would like to nominate yourself or another member of the committee for the vice chair position, please make yourself known. Okay, we see no hands online. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, at this time, I will invite the nominees to address the committee. We'll go alphabetically. So, Mr. Judge.
Thank you, Ruben. I just want to say how much I appreciate my time here as a vice chair in the last year. I appreciate the members of the TC committee and all that we do. I'm just hoping to make sure that I can continue on and support the chair and make sure that we move our agendas forward every month. And I appreciate SCAG's work in the region. And like, I can't really, I just ditto what the chair said earlier about what SCAG does for our region. So I hope to have your confidence for another year as vice chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Judge. Mr. Saleh, I know that you're on the phone, so if you would unmute yourself.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I've been on the council for 12 years, been on SCAG for over 5 years, and on the transportation for that much. And transportation means a lot to me. I'm very involved with the Gateway City Council of Government as well, and would love to the opportunity to serve on the leadership role as second vice president. So I hope to count on your support, and either one of us will do a great job. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Saleh, Mr. Judge. At this time, we will move to a vote unless a member of the committee wants to make a comment or ask a question. Okay, so a little bit of housekeeping. For those of you here in the room, we're going to ask you to please be very conscientious about activating your microphone when you cast your vote. That is so that everyone who is on remote and Zoom can hear you. And the way that you will cast your vote is when your name is called, please indicate your choice for the vice chair position, either Judge or Saleh. After, well, not after, we will tabulate the vote and make an announcement. So, Mr. Chair, we're ready for the clerk.
Ashley Aiken, Adele Andrade Stadler, Constantine Anthony, Catherine Barger, Elizabeth Becerra,
Soleil.
Brian Bergson, Russell Betts,
You know, I was gonna ask that you go with the Zs first, but I'll go with Judge.
thank you. Daniel Brotman, Art Brown,
Judge.
Jeanette Burns, Ross Chun, Denise Delgado,
Judge.
Andrew Doe, Jonathan Dumitru, John Dutre,
Judge.
James Gaisley.
Judge.
We would need one of the members voted upon, one of the nominees, please. Or did he say judge? He said judge? Okay, pardon me. Receive for judge. Jason Gibbs. Kurt Hagman. Jan Harnick.
Judge.
Laura Hernandez.
Judge.
Lauren Hughes Leslie.
Judge.
Heather Hutt. Mike Judge.
Judge.
Fred Jung. Trish Kelly.
Judge.
Thank you. Paul Krikorian. Linda Krupa.
Judge.
Bridget Lewis. Malcolm Lilienthal.
Judge.
Richard Loa.
Judge.
Clint Lorimore.
Judge.
Ken Mann.
Judge.
Steve Manos.
Judge.
Ray Marquez.
Judge.
Larry McCallan.
Judge.
Marsha McLean.
Councilman Judge.
Thank you. Tim McOsker.
Judge.
Dennis Michael.
Judge.
Linda Molina.
Judge.
Carol Moore.
Judge.
Ara Najarian.
Judge.
Maria Nava Froelich.
Judge.
Frank Navarro.
Soleil.
Sharona Nazarian.
Judge.
Gil Rebelar. Ed Reese. Celeste Rodriguez.
Soleil.
Crystal Ruiz.
Judge.
Ali Saleh.
Soleil.
Tim Sandoval.
I'm a huge Elise Soleil fan, but my vote is for judge.
Suli Sorrow.
Soleil.
Zach Schwank.
Judge.
Marty Siminoff.
Judge.
Jeremy Smith. Ward Smith.
Judge.
Jose Luis Solache. Hilda Solis. Wes Speak.
Judge.
Karen Spiegel.
Judge.
Cynthia Sternquist. Steve Ty. Michael Vargas.
Judge.
Scott Voight,
Voight, Judge.
Donald Wagner,
Judge.
Colleen Wallace,
Judge.
Alan Wapner,
Judge.
Thomas Wong, Jeff Wood,
Soleil.
Would you like me to the results, sir?
Yes.
We show 38 for Judge and 6 for Soleil.
So based on how I understand it, Mike Judge will continue to serve as our vice chair. Let's give Mike a big hand. All right, we are through that process. I was just telling David that, and I can't say that I know this for a fact, but I suspect Mike and I are probably very, very different on the political spectrum. And yet this body can elect people who have very different political views, but understand that when we come here together, that we're really trying to serve the region as best we can, particularly on the issue of transportation. So I just want to just say thank you to all of the Transportation Committee members for your service. And I know Mike and I look forward to continuing to serve you. So let's go ahead and move on to the next item, which is our consent calendar. The first thing I'd like to check is to see if we have any speakers here. Well, first of all, let me ask, are there any items that need to be, that any of the members would like to pull from consent? I'm not seeing any. Okay. Do we have any speakers on consent from the public? Any inside our chambers here? Virtually? No? Okay, I'll be happy to entertain a motion.
Brown moves.
Okay, I have a second.
Wallace.
Wallace, second. Okay, very good. Artie, we can do a roll call vote.
Ashley Aiken, Adele Andrade Stadler, Constantine Anthony, Catherine Barger, Elizabeth Becerra, Ryan Berkson, Russell Betts,
Yes.
Daniel Brotman, Art Brown, Jeanette Burns, Ross Chun, Denise Delgado,
Yes.
Andrew Doe, Jonathan Dumitru, John Dutre,
Yes.
James Gaisley,
Aye.
Jason Gibbs, Kurt Hagman, Jan Harnick,
Yes.
Laura Hernandez,
Yes.
Lauren Hughes Leslie,
Yes.
Heather Hutt, Mike Judge,
Yes.
Fred Jung, Trish Kelly, Paul Krokoria.
Kelly, yes. Kelly, yes.
Thank you. Received for Kelly. Linda Krupa,
Yes.
Bridget Lewis, Malcolm Lilienthal,
Yes.
Richard Loa,
Yes.
Clint Lorimore,
Aye.
Ken Mann,
Ken Mann, aye.
Steve Manos,
Yes.
Ray Marquez,
Yes.
Larry McCallan,
Yes.
Marsha McLean, Tim
Yes.
McOsker. Thank you,
Yes.
sir. Received. Dennis Michael, Linda Molina,
Yes.
Carol Moore,
Aye.
I will say the ARF and the.
Ara Najarian,
Yes.
Maria Nava Frolik,
Yes.
Frank Navarro,
Yes.
Dorona Nazarian,
Yes.
Gil Rebolar, Ed Reese, Celeste Rodriguez,
Yes.
Chris, thank you. Received. Crystal Ruiz,
Yes.
Ali Saleh,
Yes.
Tim Sandoval,
Yes.
Suli Sorrow,
Aye.
Zach Schwank,
Yes.
Marty Siminoff,
Yes.
Jeremy Smith, Ward Smith,
Yes.
Jose Luis Salache, Hilda Solis, Wes Speak, Karen Spiegel,
Yes.
Speak
Cynthia Sternquist, Steve Ty, Michael Vargas,
Yes.
Scott Voigt,
Voight, yes.
Donald Wagner.
Aye.
Thank you. Received. Colleen Wallace,
Yes.
Alan Walkner, Thomas Wong,
Yes.
Jeff Wood.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, the motion passes 40 in favor and 0 against.
Thank you. All right, let's go ahead and move on to agenda item 7, which is SCAG ATP Cycle 7 Regional Guidelines. Before we have the presentation, are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item? Not seeing any. All right. Rachel Ohm, Senior Regional Planner, will be providing the presentation.
Good morning, Transportation Committee members. Again, my name is Rachel Senior Planner and the Active Transportation Lead for SCAG. Excited to bring our draft regional guidelines to the committee today. Uh-oh. I always have trouble with this one. Oh.
He's there.
Having trouble here. I'll go with the mouse. Okay, thank you for your patience. All right, to start off, so the Active Transportation Program is in its 7th cycle, so we're in cycle 7. And just to start with an overview, cycle 7 will program 4 years of funds starting in fiscal year 25-26 all the way through fiscal year 28-29. We're anticipated to have approximately 569 million available across the state. The way the funds are distributed, 60% is managed by the state, so 50% is in the statewide competition, 10% of funds go to small urban and rural areas, and then 40% of funds go to metropolitan planning organizations that have 200,000 population or greater. So SCAG is in that 40% with the MPOs, and our regional share is approximately 118 million over the 4 years. So to talk about our regional guidelines development, this is developed by the ATP subcommittee for SCAG, and that's comprised of SCAG staff, myself, and then representatives from the 6 county transportation commissions. I just want to say a shout out and thank you to all the county transportation commission members who have participated in the ATP subcommittee and provided feedback. Our draft regional guidelines are shaped by the state ATP guidelines and regional priorities, such as those outlined in Connect SoCal. So the guidelines really shape how our regional funds are distributed, and you all have a copy of them, but I just want to pull out a few highlights. So 95% of our regional funds are going to implementation projects, and implementation projects are infrastructure or those capital construction projects, non-infrastructure, which includes education and engagement, and a combination projects that have infrastructure and non-infrastructure. So that is approximately 112 million over the 4 years of the ATP cycle 7, and the funds are distributed across the counties by population. So the table by county shows the funding targets for each county. The 5% remaining of those regional funds go to what we call the planning and capacity building projects. And these are planning projects such as the development of active transportation plans or safe routes to school plans. Also includes the non-infrastructure, those education engagement programs, and also quick build projects, which are interim pilot projects, which I'll share a little bit more about in future slides. And that amount comes to about 5.9 million across the 4 years. And this funding amount is also distributed across the counties by population. So this cycle, we're excited to share that our planning and capacity building ATP regional funds are bolstered by a federal Safe Streets and Roads for All, or SS4A federal grant. So as you may know, our SS4A grant included a few elements. One of those were for quick builds. So we were able to leverage our regional funds to get $4.5 million for implementation of quick build projects. And then it's $3 million from our ATP regional match. So we will have $7.5 million set aside for quick build projects this cycle 7. And I was able to work with the ATP subcommittee where we were able to have a process where basically the local match with the ATP regional funds would reflect the distribution of applications and project sizes across the county. So a little bit of an administrative process, but I think this will really reflect the interest and priorities of our region. So again, as I mentioned, quick builds are interim capital improvement projects. If you recall in our February TC meeting, we had a really interesting presentation from Margot from City of LA about the school loading zone in front of Young Oak Kim Academy. And so again, quick builds are durable. They use durable low to medium cost elements, and they can address safety issues and needs in the near term. And really they're used to test out project designs for the feasibility, effectiveness, and to gather community feedback. Just a couple examples of quick build projects in our SCAG region, starting from the left. That's with the city of El Monte. It's an example of a quick curb extension quick build. In the middle, the photo might look a bit familiar. It's that quick build project in city of LA in front of Young Oak Kim Academy that Margot had shared about. And on the right-hand side is a quick build planter protected bike lane in the city of Ojai, which they used to test out this design and then went for more permanent ATP funding. So a little bit more about our planning and capacity building projects. SCAG will be issuing a supplemental call for projects for those planning projects and quick build projects under our Sustainable Communities program, which is really the program that aims to help implement Connect SoCal. And that call for projects will be focusing on active transportation and safety. And we'll be coming back later this year in the summer to bring the draft guidelines and also kick off the call for projects for the SCP. Just a couple key dates. We've got our schedule laid out, a lot of activity happening, but just a couple things to highlight. So right now, the state ATP call for applications is open. That will be closing June 17th. If any of your jurisdictions would like any feedback or to brainstorm project ideas, they're more than welcome to reach out to me. I'd be happy to just work with our jurisdictions. Today, we are looking to get adoption of our draft regional guidelines. And later this summer, kind of building on the momentum of the statewide ATP, on June 6th, we're aiming to bring our draft SCP guidelines to TC and RC and then kick off that call for projects. Moving on to 2025, a lot of activity will be coming back in March and April to bring our proposed regional projects selected through the ATP. And then in June, we'll have our final list of projects that will be receiving ATP funding in cycle 7. Thank you so much for walking with me through the regional guidelines. Appreciate your consideration and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Ohm. All right, let's go ahead and start with anyone in person who has comments or questions. Okay, please.
Thank you for your presentation. I appreciate the mention of the quick build projects, but are there any other projects that we should be aware of that these funds will provide for?
For the supplemental call for projects, the Sustainable Communities program, that'll be planning projects such as the development of active transportation plans or safe routes to school plans, and then quick build projects. And then kind of broader for the whole ATP, there's those capital construction projects, a non-infrastructure such as education engagement. So really the same type of projects that the ATP has offered through various cycles.
Are artistic crosswalks included in that?
That would fall under the quick build project, certainly.
Good to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
There we go. You mentioned 4.5 million from the federal for these for the quick build. Were there any other federal grants for any of the other projects that we can enumerate?
For specifically under the ATP, we do not have federal funding from the SS4A or other federal funding. It's really just ATP funds, but the ATP funds are comprised of state and federal funding. So
Sure.
later, once we have our project list, we go through a process of determining for each project, does it make sense to have state funds or federal funds? And again, those federal can be ATP or SS4A.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, just for the purpose of our committee members who are online, it was Laura Hernandez who had asked the first question, and then Constantine Anthony. So feel free when I call on you to just announce your name so
Yeah, I
everybody knows.
apologize for
Oh,
that.
no,
Thank
no, no, that's on me. Appreciate it. Alrighty, anyone else in the room? Okay, I understand. Carol Moore, you have your hand up virtually.
I do. I am, thank you, obviously, for the very well presented presentation. I continue to be concerned that we make decisions and we're not observing what's going on around us. When we look around us, people are rejecting being in high density. They are wanting space. HLA is an example. People want wider sidewalks. They want a chance to ride their bikes. And we even saw that with those quick plans in front of the school. On top of that, there's even more evidence. We see the wealthy saying they want to build their own city. Why do they want to build their own city? Because they're seeing the dystopia created and they want to have their own city. This is not in our best interest. They take their money with them. We need to keep those people in the cities. So we need to think carefully. People by nature, humans need a connection with nature. It's paramount for their health and their well-being. And when we deny that connection, we feed into mental illness because of the anger that develops. So I think we need to be very thoughtful about the directions that we take. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other speakers virtually that would like to make a comment? Not seeing anyone else in the room. Okay, I'll be happy to entertain a motion on this item.
Colin Mesa moves to approve.
I'm sorry.
Hernandez, second.
First person, my apologies. Yeah, can you read it into the?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Linda Molina. I forgot who I was.
I just want to make sure the clerk gets that information. Sometimes we forget who we are. That's okay. And we had a second. So, all right, I'll turn ahead. It's all to you.
Ashley Aiken, Adele Andrade Stadler, Constantine Anthony.
Yes.
Catherine Barger, Elizabeth Becerra, Brian Bergson, Russell Betts.
Yes.
Daniel Brotman, Art Brown.
Brown eye.
Jeanette Burns, Ross Chun, Denise Delgado,
Yes.
Andrew Doe, Jonathan Dumitru, John Dutre,
Yes.
James Gaisley,
Aye.
Jason Gibbs, Kurt Hagman, Jan Harnick,
Yes.
Laura Hernandez,
Yes.
Lauren Hughes Leslie.
Yes.
Thank you. Received. Heather Hutt, Mike Judge,
Yes.
Fred Jung, Trish Kelly,
Yes.
Paul. Thank you. Received. Paul Krikorian, Linda Krupa,
Yes.
Bridget Lewis,
Yes.
Malcolm Lilienthal,
Yes.
Richard Loa,
Yes.
Clint Lorimore.
Aye.
Ken Mann,
Ken Man, yes.
Steve Manos,
Aye.
Ray Marcus,
Yes.
Larry McCallan,
Yes.
Marcia McLean.
Yes.
Thank you. Tim McOsker,
Yes.
Dennis Michael,
Yes.
Linda Molina,
Yes.
Carol Moore,
Aye.
Ara Najarian,
Yes.
Maria Nava Frolik,
Aye.
Frank Navarro,
Yes.
Sharona Nazarian,
Yes.
Gil Revolar, Ed Reese, Celeste Rodriguez,
Yes.
Ruiz,
Yes.
Ali Saleh, Tim Sandoval,
Yes.
Suli Saro,
Aye.
Zach Schwank,
Yes.
Marty Siminoff,
Yes.
Jeremy Smith, Ward Smith,
Yes.
Jose Luis Salache, Hilda Solis, Wes Speak, Karen Spiegel. Thank proceed for speak. Karen Spiegel,
Yes.
Cynthia Sternquist, Steve Ty, Michael Vargas,
Yes.
Scott Boyce, Donald Wagner, Colleen Wallace,
Yes.
Alan Wapner. Thank you, receive for Wapner. Thomas Wong,
Yes.
Jeff Wood.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The motion passes 43 in favor and 0 against.
Thank you. That was our only action item. The next two items are information items, starting with agenda item number 8, which is the Federal Aviation Administration and Advanced Air Mobility. At this time, I'd like to call up Hiroshi Ishikawa, who is our Senior Regional Planner. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Sandoval, Vice Chair Judge, and Honorable Transportation Committee members. As part of our ongoing series on advanced air mobility, we had Urban Airport back in February. Today, we have the pleasure of learning about the Federal Aviation Administration's efforts in advanced air mobility planning from our special guest, Dr. Raquel Gervin, the regional administrator of the FAA Western Pacific region, and she will be assisted by Scott Gore, program manager from the FAA Western Pacific region. But before I formally introduce Dr. Gervin, I just wanted to clarify once again that when talking about advanced air mobility, or AAM for short, one is referring to the movement of people and goods over local and regional trips. What makes AAM unique from traditional forms of air transportation, such as flying to Las Vegas, are the shorter trips and the utilization of new technology, including electrical vertical takeoff and liftoff aircraft. AAM does not include recreational drones or the film drones that you see. So it's the movement of people and goods. Now, speaking of AAM, so today, Dr. Gervin will be updating the SCAG TC on the FAA's role in AAM, some of the anticipated roles for local and state governments and regional governments, recommended planning actions for airports interested in AAM, and other critical planning and regulatory factors and resources for AAM. It should be noted that the FAA AAM presentation that you'll see today is hot off the presses. It's fresh. It's right out of the oven. So this is why the presentation was not included in the TC agenda packet. So if you're looking for it, it's not a joke or it wasn't an error. Unfortunately, we didn't get it to them in time. So you will be receiving the FAA presentation after the meeting. And so, and thanks again to Maggie and the board clerk and all the staff for their understanding. So now I would like to formally introduce Dr. Raquel Gervin. Dr. Gervin was appointed the regional administrator for the FAA Western Pacific region back in December 2018. The FAA Western Pacific region encompasses the states of Arizona, California, Hawaii, and Nevada, and the U.S. territories of American Samoa, Guam, and the Commonwealth of Northern Mariana Islands. Dr. Gervin, who has over 30 years of multidisciplinary experience in aviation, serves as the principal executive representative of the FAA administrator and is the senior FAA official in the region. Dr. Gervin also holds a PhD in transportation studies from the University of California, Irvine, my PhD alma mater as well, so zot. I also want to say that you'll be joined by Scott Gore, program manager with the FAA. Scott Gore recently moved back to Southern California. He was, from the Valley originally, so welcome Scott back to Southern California. So now would you all please join me in giving a warm welcome to Dr. Raquel Gervin, Regional Administrator of the FAA Western Pacific Region.
Thanks so much, Hiroshi. And don't call me Dr. Gervin. Just Raquel is fine. Chair Sandoval, Vice Chair Judge, and Transportation Committee members, thank you so much for this opportunity to share with you what's going on at the FAA with respect to advanced air mobility. So let's see here. I might just maybe enter.
Just use the arrows.
Arrows.
On the laptop.
Laptop. Trying. There we go. Okay, so actually Hiroshi did a really nice job introducing the topic of advanced air mobility. I am going to point you to the legal definition that came up established by Congress. So it is a transportation system that transports people and property by air between 2 points in the United States using aircraft with advanced technologies, including electric aircraft or electrical vertical takeoff and landing aircraft in both controlled and uncontrolled airspace. So again, it's people and property, and it is not just one technology, but really it's a collection of a lot of new, exciting, emerging aviation technologies. You'll hear the term air taxis. You'll hear the term powered lift. Powered lift is a subset of the types of aircraft that would be flying this kind of a mission. Here, next. This just provides a snapshot of some of the high-level items that are going on right now. On the right-hand side, you'll see logos and companies named. These are some of the partnerships that have been forming, and I'm sure that there will be more. I mean, there are literally hundreds of companies that are in the advanced air mobility arena. At the FAA, we are looking to certify the first aircraft in 2025.
If I could just pause just for a moment. Tiffany Martinez, if you can please mute yourself virtually. Okay, it has been done. Back to you. My apologies.
Oh, not a problem. There are predictions for this market to be quite large by 2030, which is not that far away. There's a prediction out there for a $30 billion market. There's a lot of venture capital in this business. Some of the initial business cases are air taxi, airport to city pair, and actually not included here, but we hear a lot about also is from airport to airport. There's cargo, small market hubs, medical transport. And initially, these manufacturers and operators are talking about maybe helicopter type, GA type operations, but then, and with pilots, but then many of them are looking towards autonomous operations in the future. So it's a pretty exciting, innovative arena. And obviously, from the FAA's perspective, and I'll talk more a little bit about that, is, we're trying to balance the pace of innovation and the safety of these operations. So next slide. Safety is number one. That every conversation with the FAA starts with safety. And so that is our primary role. We're going to make sure that this new generation of aircraft has the highest level of operational safety. So we're going to be certifying the aircraft to make sure that they meet the standards. We are developing and finalizing an operating framework for the pilots and the companies that are going to be running these operations. We are going to need to integrate these new aircraft in the existing aviation system, which is already quite busy, as I'm sure a lot of you know. And then because these are going to be flying in and out of what we're calling vertiports, we need to develop safety and design standards for them. This next bullet here is part of what we're doing here, which is to engage with state, local, and tribal governments and communities, as well as with the operators. Environmental review is another important role that we're going to be playing. And depending on the type of the project and whether the FAA approval is required, I'm going to be talking a little bit about that later. And last but not least, as I noted, because there are so many of these companies all over the world, we need to work on international harmonization. Okay, so it is really great to get a chance to address you all because you are representing local governments. And as you can see here, there's a very long list of the roles that we want to work with you on with respect to advanced air mobility. A number of these items are all very familiar to you. I mean, this is your bread and butter. You do this all the time. I'm just going to highlight a couple of things that would be new just because we're talking about this new mode of transportation, which is siting of vertiports. I believe you already do a lot of community engagement, but I think in this particular case, again, because you're going to be introducing a new technology, we think that that's a really important one. Utilities and electrification is a big one. I know that we obviously have surface electric vehicles, but we're talking about, I think, a significant amount of electrification needed for these aircraft. And so on the community engagement and awareness, I did want to note, and we'll have more information on this, that the FAA is going to be hosting an AAM webinar very specifically on the topic of community engagement on April 17th. And we would very much encourage you all to listen in on that or have your staff listen in because I think that's really the start of many conversations I think we'll be having with you on this topic. So bottom line is, we hope your teams are really kind of thinking about this because advanced air mobility is, getting closer to reality. It's not necessarily tomorrow, but getting close to reality. Next thing I wanted to talk about, because a number of you have airports in your jurisdictions, is there's planning actions that airports need to take into account if you're interested in AAM operations. So number one, you've got to include, or the airports have to include advanced air mobility in the standard planning processes, just as they do today for any other thing that they're doing at the airport. It's really important for them to talk to the stakeholders within the airport if they're planning on adding AAM. I'm going to talk, again, we're talking here about electrification, and that's an important consideration for the airport. The next bullet has to do with the process by which the FAA will approve this. And so it's important for the airports to follow the standard airport airspace analysis and airport layout plan process in coordination with the FAA's Office of Airports. And last but not least, there are grant assurances. A number of airports receive federal grants, and so there are requirements within that. And so at this point, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague here, Scott, and then I'll come back and join you in a little bit. So go ahead, Scott.
Great, thanks, Raquel. Good morning, everybody. So as Raquel noted, there's quite a lot of work both within the FAA and all the other stakeholders involved in integrating advanced air mobility into the National Airspace System. And so to organize this work, the FAA created a portfolio called Innovate 28, which is led by our Office of NextGen at FAA headquarters in DC, and all of the regional teams for the FAA support that work around the country. And the agency has a long history of integrating new technology into the National Airspace System since the FAA's founding in 1958 for the last over 65 years. So we have this programmatic kind of portfolio and approach called Innovate 28 to focus on the near-term entry into service goals that the industry has in the 2025 to 2028 timeframe. The FAA is also, as part of that work, updating our regulatory framework to enable these new type of aircraft, these unique aircraft to enter the existing system. And beyond the FAA's work, there's also a whole of government approach as this new emerging sector in aviation touches on a whole host of things outside of just the FAA's purview. And so there's also a whole of government approach needed to integrate these new aircraft that includes, and shown in the kind of the last bullet there, includes things like spectrum, power and energy infrastructure, community impacts, supply chain, security, both physical security, cybersecurity, a whole range of issues that are outside the FAA's purview, and the U.S. Congress had noted the need for that whole of government approach. Oops. Apologies for that. And so at the departmental level, the U.S. Department of Transportation is leading that whole of government approach, which the FAA is a participant of, to develop a national strategy for advanced air mobility. And that effort, directed by Congress, is expected to be published, that national strategy expected to be published in late this year. So this map shows some of the industry projections for where this new emerging industry expects to launch service in the near term. Again, these are just sort of notional locations around the country that the industry is working towards and that has been out there developing some local partnerships and talking about integrating. And that, again, that near term is defined as 2025 to 2028. And the Innovate 28 portfolio that I mentioned has 4 main goals at the FAA. The work is organized to define what those agency actions are needed to enable these near-term operations, provide a focal point at the FAA for the industry and local communities to work with, and provide support to coordinate all the efforts across the agencies. As noted earlier, it touches on a whole range of issues: airspace, ground infrastructure, whole range of topics, and develop a repeatable process that can be implemented as these new aircraft and new sector is implemented in different parts of the national airspace system. So develop a repeatable process that can be utilized in different geographic regions, as well as plan for that longer term evolution of what the airspace could look like beyond the initial term. There's some other resources that we'll talk about in a minute on a longer term concept of operations. And so that's part of this Innovate 28 portfolio as well, to develop those scalable, repeatable processes on what that evolution of the airspace will look like long term. This slide shows some of the recent already completed accomplishments and milestones within advanced air mobility. And I'll just highlight a couple for awareness. Last summer, the FAA published, and this is the 6th or 7th bullet, in July 2023, published our Innovate 28 implementation plan. And so that's available on the FAA website. And that's really focused on that near term 2025 to 2028 timeframe. So that was a significant milestone. And then just last month, at the bottom bullet there, the FAA finalized the airworthiness, the design criteria for the first AAM aircraft, and that was the manufacturer Joby Aviation. And so the FAA published that final design criteria in the Federal Register last month. For upcoming milestones that we expect this year and next year, I'll just highlight a couple on here. Later this year, I mentioned the national strategy. We expect that to be published. We also expect this fall that the FAA will publish a final rule on the training and certification of pilots of these aircraft, and that will be a big milestone for the agency and for the industry. And so we do expect that to be published later this year. And then next year, we expect the first certification of the design of these aircraft in 2025 for the design approval, and that's kind of the second to the bottom bullet there. And Raquel, can I turn it back to you?
Scott, can you move back to the
sure.
previous slide? Because I think that's where the information is on the,
yes.
I mentioned the webinar. So the very first bullet there, April 17th, 2024, 11 a.m. Pacific. And I think we have a subsequent slide that has got the actual information in it. So I just wanted to make sure that you had that available. Okay, so back to engagement and the fact that it really requires, I think you heard it, this is an all of government issue, and it really involves so many different parts of our society to work on this. And so that's why anytime we are talking to folks, we're talking about how important it is to engage early and engage deeply, up, down, across. So for us, collaborating is a really important thing. And, our office is here to serve as a contact for you if you have questions or if you want to talk to us about this particular issue. But really, there's so many different stakeholders, public, private. There's, local, state, tribal, federal. And I think when you hear about all the different topics that are involved, it really is such a vast network of folks that you have to engage with in order for this to succeed. So that's absolutely critical. We also know that the industry itself has a very important role in community engagement. They are the ones who are wanting to operate and over, our communities. And so it's important for them to engage with the communities and engage with us in that process. We, of course, are encouraging the cities, municipalities, and the operators to work with the FAA as early as possible in the planning process, because it's a complex endeavor. And so really, you got to think of AAM holistically as part of a large transportation system. I know that multimodal is something that a lot of us here in Southern California think a lot about. So that's just some of the very, just whenever we talk about community engagement or engagement with stakeholders, we talk about all of these items. And I think last slide I'm going to talk about is the environmental review aspect for AAM operations. As I noted, the FAA has an environmental responsibility for AAM, but actually our level of responsibility will depend on the project, where it's going to be, and the types of operations. So just as an example here, if a proposed vertiport is going to be on a federally funded airport, then it would require an FAA environmental review. But if a vertiport is going to be constructed on private property, then the FAA may not necessarily be the one doing the environmental review. So again, we can't say it enough. We need you and the industry and all the other folks up and down and across the chain to be involved in this, to work with us and kind of get us involved. So as you're thinking about this, so that we can all kind of proceed as smoothly as possible. I think, this last slide really just has a whole bunch of references for you and your teams to get a chance to look at. We have our own webpage at the very bottom. And so if you need to get a hold of us, I think you'll find the information there. So that's it. Thanks very much. It was a fairly quick overview, but I hope that it gave you a good sense of what's going on. And I'm happy to entertain any questions, which I may or may not be able to answer, but I will take home the assignment if I can't answer them directly. Thanks.
And I'm going to thank you, Raquel, Doctor.
No.
All right, let's go and start with, do any members of the public who wish to speak on this item? Are there any here? Okay, not seeing any. I'm going to start with Soli Saro, and then Russell Betts, and then I'll work my way over to the back here.
Thank you, Chair Sandoval. Thank you, Hiroshi and Raquel and Scott, for the presentation. I appreciate you coming back with an update from the presentation in February. There has been, I would say, in Long Beach conversation already, and even development on air mobility. And there's been concerns. We have an active community around our airport that's been really concerned about these aviation classes that's been going on. There's been an emerging interest to fly. And I know that it'll go through environmental review, but that's the portion where how does that shape out as we talk about design of the aircraft in 2025 to the environmental review? Because I'm just wondering, is it first design? Because then it talks about, well, what kind of fuel these vehicles will use? And because that's also an important factor in where we're still using leaded fuel in our aircraft, which we know is very harmful to the environment. So I'm just wondering what would be the way and where the process would begin around conversation on the fuels used, whether it is unleaded or certain percentage electric aircrafts and so forth.
Yeah, most, if not all, and I guess I won't say all just because I'm not all knowing, but most of them are electric vehicles. So that's why the charging component is an important part of the conversation. In the process of certification, because it's an FAA action, there's an environmental component to it. And in the certification part of it, just like with any other aircraft that the FAA certifies, there are noise and emission standards that the aircraft are certified to. And then in terms of as I noted, so for example, if a vertiport is going to be sited at the airport itself, at Long Beach Airport itself, and because it's a federally obligated airport, then the FAA has to take action, and the FAA would be doing the environmental review for whatever operations are being proposed, or I'm sorry, for the siting of the vertiport, which then, of course, implies that there will be operations associated with them. Did I answer all of the questions?
You did part one. My second was at what level, at what time frame would that certification process be open for feedback? Because I want to make sure, again, we engage staff and then also the community early in the process, because we don't want to come off as, look, we're already having issue with our aviation class aircraft, and now you're going to bring air mobility into the mix. So we want to make sure we get ahead of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really part of the reason why we think it's so important for these conversations to happen even before, the formal environmental process, right? But nevertheless, in terms of the formal environmental process, there is always a public comment period, there's a lot of public engagement already as part of the FAA's environmental process. But I would like to think that, our office works with the city of Long Beach and Long Beach Airport on other issues, that if in fact there is an application to build a vertiport and to start to have operations out of Long Beach Airport, that we would have those conversations way in advance, and we would work together in terms of how best to make sure that the communities are able to provide their input in the process. So I think that in reality, it's up to us collectively to make sure that that's happening even before the formal process. But for sure, in the formal process, there is already a public engagement in there.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I look forward to engaging in those discussion early on.
Yes.
Thank you. I just want to announce the rest of the speakers. There are several speakers in person for those of you who are watching who are virtual. Next speaker is Russell Betts, and then Colleen Wallace, and then Karen Spiegel, and then Tim McOsker, and Constantine Anthony, and then I did see one go up over here. So, Mr. Betts, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This committee has always been good for the look that it gives us into the future, and it's always been fantastic for that. And this presentation here is a perfect example of that. I'm thinking back to a children's cartoon from 50 years ago, that gave this, predicted what the future would be. And that was, of course, the Jetsons. Sitting here as a council member in our city, I can predict something else that's going to come along. And that's going to be people saying, hey, I don't want those. Where's this corridor going to be? I don't want those flying over my head. I don't want the noise. I know people are impacted by the flight path and the landing to the airports, and that becomes an issue. And I'm imagining, as you're going to be looking at, you're not going to be having these, what do you call them, drones or people drones, whatever they're called. Sorry, I don't get the name right now.
Oh, air taxis, probably a good way to.
They're not going to be in the flight path of a 747. They're going to be picking a whole new flight path. So I'm just raising for everybody here that as council members, whatever you do in the rest of your life, besides this committee, this is going to be an issue that's going to come to us and as this happens. But I really appreciate the presentation. Thank you. It's very, very interesting subject.
Thank you. Colleen Wallace?
Thank you for the presentation. My question is, how will this affect cities that are trying to close their airports?
So obviously that's a completely different conversation in terms of what cities want to do with their airports. What I would say is the urban air taxis don't have to operate out of airports. It just so happens that some of the initial thinking from industry on where they'd like to, for their own business cases, they are talking about operating out of airports. So if there's an airport that's closing, I guess they won't be flying in and out of that particular one. But, I think we have, there's lots of options. And again, it's the industry working with you all and your communities to kind of negotiate on where are they going to be flying in and out of, right? So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Very good. All right, let's go ahead and go with Karen Spiegel.
I think it was your last slide, and it was pointed out that the environmental review was not for private, but only public.
So right now, yeah, what we're saying is definitely the FAA will be involved in environmental review if it is a publicly accessible, open use kind of airport or vertiport. If it is going to be on private property, our role is going to be significantly diminished with respect to that, right? Because it's where does the way that works is where there is federal action, that is where the FAA would have lead in the environmental review. Doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. It's just who's in the lead on conducting it.
Concerned about that one. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Tim McOsker. He has 2, 1. All right, let's move on to the next speaker. I'm kidding. Take your time. No worries.
Thank you very much. Tim McOsker, City of Los Angeles. And I think you were addressing the issue, and I was speaking to one of our planners from the great city of Los Angeles. I just want to be really super clear because maybe a lot of folks in this room know a lot more about this than I do. But when I hear that we want a process that is repeatable, and when I hear that we want all levels of government involved, I just want to remind ourselves, everyone in the room, that local government is one of the governments. So it is really, I do get that it's important to have uniformity, but it's also extraordinarily important to have local control. I mean, we will have constituents who will be excited about this, and we'll have constituents who are not. And particularly when we're on private properties or non-FAA, grant assurance properties, we want to make sure that we have complete reasonable and complete land use controls for implementing, conditioning, making sure that this process and these operations work for our local constituencies. And I get that when if it's at LAX or Long Beach, that we'll have a NEPA and FAA issues. But when we are, outside the fence, when we're on properties that are owned by other governmental agencies or by private properties, that we're going to have a CEQA process. We're going to have a local land use process that will be within the limits of the law, that will be entirely in the control of local city councils. You agree or disagree with that?
What I would say is, so the roles and responsibilities is clearly something that we are in constant conversation on. I'm hoping, but I actually don't know who all contributed, in Scott's slides, there was a reference to the Advanced Air Mobility Interagency Working Group that put out a request for information
Right.
that really was requesting input from all of the stakeholders to help develop the national strategy. And that national strategy is going to help kind of inform that. I mean, there are definitely, I think that land use is something that has always been a local kind of jurisdiction. So it's really more, the FAA is all about safety. That is our top kind of issue. And our role almost in any of these cases is going to be just making sure that there's going to be safe operations. But it's complex. And I think that you're raising these points is part of why we need to make sure that we're talking to each other and that we are hearing your perspectives. And, we obviously have to follow federal laws and statute. And so that's the kind of thing that we would have to just be in a continuing conversation on.
So I would just, I don't think I have to urge this group to do so, but I would just urge every, local agency or regional agency to be involved, because I think we're all going to understand there is a transportation policy, which is very, very important. And I think the FAA has a preeminent role in the transportation strategy, nationwide. There's going to be safety issues. And I think that those are certainly in your wheelhouse, but there's also land use policy. And the land use policy, I think, needs to be owned by local governments.
If I could just expand a little bit on the upcoming webinar, that is actually going to involve state DOT. I believe it's Florida. I'm not remembering exactly, and then there's going to be a city represented there as well. So that's actually going to be a conversation that will likely kind of touch on the topics that you're raising.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm going to go now to Constantine Anthony and then Thomas Wong.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for this presentation. It's a very exciting technology. My son loves vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. I'm going to talk to him about it when he gets home tonight. Can I ask you a little bit about the technical aspects of these aircraft?
You could give it a try.
Okay. All right.
I'm not going to claim that I'm going to know the answer to it, but let's see.
From my understanding, these aircraft need a smaller takeoff and landing areas than obviously a plane, but also a helicopter. Is that correct?
I know that we have got some initial guidance on vertiport sighting and sizing kind of things, but actually, I think in one of our slides, we talk about how we're going to be issuing. Let's see, remind me, Scott. I think we are expecting updated interim design guidelines for vertiports in late 2024.
Okay.
So yeah, we've issued some initial guidance, what we've learned, and actually some of these references, we have webinars on all these other topics. And one of the things we've been doing is getting more data from some of these manufacturers that actually already have aircraft. And we are using that data to help kind of refine the standards that we're setting for these vertiports.
Okay.
So I think to answer, it's not as straightforward to answer that question just because it depends on what types of aircraft are going to be operating in and out.
I imagine, you could scale up the aircraft to even larger.
Yeah.
Is the FAA looking to regulate AAM as just unmanned vehicles, or are they also including piloted aircraft?
Quite a few of them are starting out as piloted aircraft.
But is the conversation going that they're going to separate the two, unmanned and manned?
I don't know if I can.
Unpiloted and piloted?
What I would say is that we are certainly looking at the autonomous vehicles, but the aircraft that are going to be certified in the near future, like 2025, that is definitely certified as a piloted aircraft with a pilot on board.
Okay. From my understanding, again, this is the research I've done, these types of vertical takeoff and landings aircraft are only feasible in two types of trips. Short trips that need to make a huge elevation change, or medium range trips across a geographical divide like a mountain range or a body of water. All the other trips that they're proposing is more economically feasible with either a truck when we're talking about cargo, or a bus or a train when we're talking about people. So I mean, I appreciate you coming down and talking to us about the new regulations, but I just want to inform my colleagues that this is not going to be a wide scale thing. This is not going to replace transit on a massive scale. The amount of energy that is needed to lift this thing straight up into the air is very different than, if you know the technology of an airplane wing, simply moving an airplane into the air and coasting on the wind. It's also not we're going to replace helicopter usage. You need, for specific, especially emergencies, we need pilots in the air manning these vehicles. So it's, in theory, what I see happening are two types of trips. People movers for very specific locations, either across bodies of water or across a mountain range or somewhere that you can't get to, especially like an island or something like that. Call City of Avalon, they'll get a bunch. And cargo trips that need to move elevation, either up a cliff or up a high mountain range. So we're going to see people and cargo, and I'm pretty sure if I was going to design these things, I'd separate the two. I wouldn't want to move people and cargo at the same time. With that being said, I want to echo the sentiments of the supervisor and the council member. The FAA designs regulations for airports, but they also design regulations for helipads and heliports. And this type of technology is much more akin to a helicopter. And in fact, the state of California also has their own separate regulations for heliports and helipads. In addition, many local cities also have regulations for the permitting of heliports and helipads. So I know there's new technology coming at us, but we need to follow the guidelines of what's worked in the past, work with our state partners, keep that local control, the permitting, the allowances of these travel areas, travel lanes in the sky, I guess. If we go back to even the Jetsons reference, they all stayed in a straight line, right? They didn't fly everywhere. They were always they had traffic jams in the air, if you remember. So we can do this. We have to stay ahead of it, and we have to look to the future. From my understanding, I guess this is still all in flux. Anything and everything is still up for debate and for influence to the FAA. Now they are their own separate body, but we can continue to make recommendations and input. Yes.
Yeah, there is a committee called the Advanced, let's see, AAC is Advanced Aviation Advisory Committee. And that actually has cities, local officials, airports, industry members. So that's one venue in which this sort of conversation is happening. That committee actually meets publicly. So I would say that is another, I don't know if it's on this set of.
Does that organization accept letters from other organizations if
yes,
potentially?
So it's a public forum. So yeah, you can provide information to that. I'm actually looking here to see if we have it. I don't think
Raquel, if I can intervene here, because I'm sure
it's here.
This is coming up about where people can actually participate in the process. If I could ask staff to identify when these meetings are happening, how we can participate. If you could provide that information to our staff, then I'm going to recommend that staff send this out to every committee member. So do you want to participate or let your city officials know so that you're aware of when these meetings are happening, who are the different groups that are meeting, so as to address some of the issues, particularly around local control.
And Mr. Chair, if I could, if potentially this body wanted to write a letter with their concerns to that body, what would be the process for that?
I think it would be something that we would introduce typically at the end of the um, committee meetings. We do open it up for committee members to offer up an idea or proposal for a future item for consideration. So I think maybe that's the vehicle. Bruin, do you want to weigh in?
No, that's correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay, very good.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's
Thank
go and
you.
move on. I want to make sure that we get everyone.
Yeah.
We are still have regional council meeting at noon. I do have Thomas Wong, and then I'm going to stop here at Art Brown, and then I'm going to go virtual. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just really quickly, I'd echo just a lot of the concerns and the excitement about advanced air mobility. Clearly, I think this body and SCAG should pay close attention to how this evolves. My request is really for SCAG potentially, if there's an opportunity maybe to reach out to Joby or one of these other carriers that's getting set up, and maybe we could set up a tour. I'm curious to see the noise impacts and design and how that might impact local communities if they start citing some of these sites in our communities, and what those impacts would be, just to be better informed about this. So maybe if staff can work on maybe setting up a tour or some sort of observation of someone that's testing this out or organized, that would be great and be helpful for informing this as this continues to evolve.
Yeah, it is noted. Okay, last speaker
Quick.
in person, Jan Harnick.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation. This is really interesting. And thank you for the information on that YouTube on April 17th. Will you be sending us, will we have the opportunity to receive this deck?
Yes,
Yes,
and that's
okay.
something that I was going to request of staff to provide that
Great.
presentation.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Very good. Okay, before we go to West Speak, I do wanted to say that all of us know that we spend billions, if not trillions of dollars on infrastructure. What does the impact of something like this have on dollars that would be for physical infrastructure versus people? Russell Betts mentioned jetpacks or basically the Jetsons, right? But I mean, when we think about the future, what is it going to look like given the cost of the paying for the physical infrastructure that currently accommodates cars? And so I just think about that. I don't know if you have conversations in your circles about when the Jetsons are going to arrive to our sort of current, is it 10, 15, 20 years from now? But I'm curious as to when perhaps that may be realized, given the cost of, as we all know, we could certainly use dollars to go to other things in our cities, because we spend millions and if not billions of dollars, depending on the size of your city, on the physical infrastructure to move people. So I just wanted to point that out, but I'm not going to ask for any comment on it. I'm going to go to our final speaker, virtual, which is West Speak. You can unmute yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I actually put my hand down. All my colleagues answered or got all of my questions answered. So I appreciate that. I want to echo the council member from the city of Los Angeles. Local control needs to be first and foremost. So looking forward to hearing more about this.
Great, thank you. Alrighty, that's our final speaker. Raquel, doctor, thank you so much for your presentation. It certainly has stirred up this body. And I know there are more questions. Can't get all the answers today, but we certainly will bring an item forward so that we can certainly weigh in as a body on the work that you're doing. So thank you again for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much. And again, I did double check our list here of resources, and some of those public meetings are available. So you'll have that access. Thank you so much.
Much appreciated. All right, we're going to go move on to agenda item number 9, which is the Montebello First Mile, Last Mile Plan. At this time, I'd like to call on Krista Yost, Assistant Planner. Welcome.
Hello. Good morning, Transportation Committee members. My name is Krista Yost, and I'm an Assistant Regional Planner in the Mobility Planning and Goods Movement Department. Today, I'm excited to introduce the City of Montebello's first last mile plan. This plan was approved by the Montebello City Council this past February, and its primary aim is to improve access to transit and boost transit ridership in Montebello. And it does this by proposing citywide active transportation and safety improvements for making walking, biking, and rolling more feasible and safer near transit stops. And we've taken note of the Transportation Committee's concerns regarding the need for more first last mile planning and support for transit ridership recovery in the region. So this plan addresses those concerns while also advancing the mobility goals of Connect SoCal 2024 and supporting the creation of an integrated multimodal transportation network. Furthermore, our efforts are aligned with the state's Transit Transformation Task Force initiatives to increase transit ridership statewide. So today we have Alfredo Machuca, transit planner at the City of Montebello, who will be sharing key highlights from the plan and offering insights into how similar initiatives can benefit communities across our region. Okay, Alfredo.
Welcome, Mr. Machuca. Please come forward. It is a gentle body. Oh, is he online? Oh, it's even, okay, great. He'll be joining us online. Just need to unmute yourself. If you can hear us, Mr. Machuca, you are on.
Yes, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Good morning, everybody, Honorable Chair, committee members. My name is Alfredo Machuca. I'm the transit planner for Montebello Bus Lines. We're very grateful that SCAG allowed us to do this first mile, last mile plan. This plan was made possible by the Sustainable Communities Grant that SCAG provides. Montebello Bus Lines has been dedicated to 93 years of superior service. While we do take pride in our motor coach operations, we are now excited to start looking into the first and last mile legs of our passenger strips, especially within the city. 1 second. Just to briefly go over what the presentation will encompass, we'll be going over the background of the plan, community engagement summaries. We'll be diving a little bit into the data analysis that we went into, treatment options that came about as a result of this plan, and priority project locations that were chosen. The background of this project, SCAG did do the procurement and funding of this plan. This was a collaboration between the city, SCAG, and the consultants KTUA and Circulate San Diego. We started approximately in September 2022 with our efforts. It took around a year and a half to get this process going, and we have completed the plan. So the objective of the first mile, last mile plan was to safely connect people to public transit, connect residential origins with work and retail destinations, and to increase transit use by making it an attractive and inviting experience. Something that's echoed a lot within our patrons is that while the bus ride itself is comfortable, at least within the city of Montebello, they're looking for a better experience getting to the bus stop, and when they're on the bus, when they get off the bus, to make that last leg connection a little bit easier for them. So the first mile, typically a lot, especially for commuters in suburban households, it's typically walking to a bus stop, taking a transit ride to the final bus stop, and then typically the last mile has to be for work purposes, whether it be a place of employment or a school, especially with students. On your right-hand side, we see a data analysis of boardings and alighting within the last 2 years. And that really helped us guide to see what areas we should be focusing on within our system. Important thing to highlight is that this plan also took into consideration connections with Metrolink and Metro. Montebello will be getting light rail in the future with the extension of the E-Line Phase 2 into the Southeast LA area. That will be done through Greenwood Station, which connects to our Line 20. The goal of this plan was also to improve safety and access to the Montebello Commerce Metrolink Station and future Greenwood Station, to expand shuttle programs to and from the Metrolink Station, especially for transit-dependent households. Explore mobility hubs at the Montebello Commerce Station and future Metro Light Rail Station at Greenwood. Goals and objectives and implementation strategies include coordination with Metrolink and Metro, such as TOD hubs, micro-mobility options and storage, and low-income fare programs. Just as an FYI, Montebello Bus Lines does participate in LIFE, on Metro's Life program, which is low income fare is easy, which gives the truly transit dependent and low income people free rides within our system. We had a good amount of community engagement events, very big events as well. One of the events that we participated in was a Heritage Festival, and we went there twice over the span of 1 year. And it's basically a festival that all the community kind of comes to at the city park. There's a lot of informational booths, and we did a lot of outreach in what people wanted to see. And towards the end is how we would rank these projects in terms of the public's perception, right? What was most important to the public? We also attended the Downtown Street Fest. Downtown Street Fest is a closure of Whittier Boulevard. There's music, there's a lot of booths, there's food, there's things for the kids, and we were out there as well, trying to gauge what the public wanted to come out of this plan. Here's a few examples. We actually utilized the SCAD kit of parts. One of those examples is the artistic crosswalk, which you can see on your right-hand side. We did have a technical advisory committee. There was a total of 6 meetings to get feedback from local community stakeholders, people involved and or agencies involved with Caltrans, the Montebello Police Department, the City of Montebello's Community Development and Public Works Departments, Montebello Unified School District, including its high schools, the MTA, the YMCA, as well as SCAD. We had 10 walk and 2 bicycle audits. We went around the city to really get embedded planning approach towards this plan, right? We want to see in person what actual needs were, if there was any segments of sidewalk that really needed upgrading, if there was any missing segments of sidewalk within the sidewalk system of the city. One thing that really stood out is that we invited 2 of the high schools to do walk audits with us. So Montebello High School and Shore High School were invited, both participated, and you could see that on the right-hand side of the screen. We took students out and we walked with them to kind of get their input on what they would want to see. Students do use our system a lot to get to both Shore and Montebello High School. That's with line 10, 20, and 70 within Montebello bus lines. So it's important for us to get their feedback as well. Something that really stood out as well on the picture on the top left is actually a pedestrian mortality. One thing that we took into this plan into consideration was amount of people being struck by automobiles, whether it was pedestrians or bicyclists. So that was something that was factored in as well. Here's an outreach summary of a lot of surveys that we did. Surveys were done in person. The surveys were provided in English and Chinese and Spanish to comply with the system's Title VI program. Surveys were also provided on bus with QR codes. All of our fleet were equipped with QR codes, showing that if anybody had any questions or if they want to fill out a survey, they could scan the barcode and access that survey online. 61% of survey respondents reported experiencing any problems walking, cycling, or accessing transit along a particular route or location. The top 3 problem areas were Beverly Boulevard, Whittier Boulevard, and Washington Boulevard. The top challenges were the lack of bike lanes and bike parking, traffic delays and congestion, and personal safety concerns. The top treatments to address these concerns were ADA improvements, lighting, crosswalks, sidewalks, bike lanes, and connections. Connection goes both ways. Connections would be pedestrian, really kind of closing the gap in any sidewalks that could be missing. Another connection would be ensuring that buses that typically connect to each other, such as line 10 to 20, that they're timed correctly so that people don't have to wait as long for a bus. For data collection and analysis, we used a lot of our CAD-AVL data. CAD-AVL is computer-assisted dispatching and automatic vehicle location. So that includes our transit boarding and alightings, existing pedestrian networks that we got from our Public Works Department, existing bicycle networks that we also got from our Public Works Department, existing land use, which was provided by our Planning Department, collision analysis that was done by UC Berkeley's TIM system, and walk and bike audits, which city staff, along with consultants and stakeholders, did as well. This data collection ultimately got cartographed, and we were able to get maps on hotspots of areas. From left to right, we did a bus stop frequency analysis. We are still kind of suffering through the remnants of COVID-19. Our headways are not what they used to be. We are working towards restoring previous headways. However, we have done a very good job in ensuring that those buses are at least there. When headways are increased, it's done to at least give a surety that the bus will be there when it is scheduled to be there. There's also gaps, existing bus stops, sidewalk gaps, and collision densities. That was also mapped. Existing bike network with collisions, and that was overlaid to see what areas we should be prioritizing, and then a collision density analysis to as well kind of take into consideration of what areas we need to be paying special attention to. There are 5 priority projects, 4 intersections, and 1 neighborway. We have 4 intersections at 1 Beverly Boulevard, Maple Avenue, 2 Whittier Boulevard, Garfield Avenue, 3 Whittier Boulevard, Montebello Boulevard, 4 Washington Boulevard, Greenwood Avenue, and 5 the Madison Avenue neighborway, which connects the Rio Hondo Bikeway all the way throughout the city. Treatment options. There's a handful of treatment options that we looked into. One priority for us was that we wanted to ensure that public safety response times were not hindered. And we'll go over that in a bit, but some of the treatment options were hardened center lines, speed cushions, and that really is important because if you have a paramedic truck or a fire truck that needs to get access to a street, typically these residential smaller streets, they can go over the speed cushion without it actually impeding their speed, like a speed hump. A speed cushion is a little different because it's 3 segments on the street and it's not 1 full bar across. There's also pedestrian refugee islands, truck aprons, high visibility crosswalks, and lead pedestrian intervals. The lead pedestrian intervals are to ensure that anybody of any age and any ability or disability can cross the street with enough time. Bus stop treatments, something that we heard a lot and something that was recommended was lighting up bus stops, real-time LED displays, which is GTFS real-time feeds, the actual bus shelter and seating, and trash receptacles. Montebello Bus Lines has already started implementing this plan, and we will be moving forward with the bus shelter improvement project as a result of this plan. The first priority project is Beverly Boulevard and Maple Avenue. I do want to mention that a lot of the treatment options are the same throughout all the priority projects. So we'll go over the first one and then we'll be showing illustrations towards the next 3 as well as neighborhood. Things to take into consideration, as mentioned before, the high visibility crosswalks, truck aprons, which requires the car to take a wider turn, but a truck can still go on top of that concrete lip. So it gives not just perceived safety, but actual physical safety to the pedestrian. Reflective borders on signal heads, pedestrian and bicycle friendly signal timing so that everybody has enough time to cross the street. Pedestrian noses, just to kind of give a little bit more of a hardened safety for people crossing the street. And where space permits, lighting, trash cans, and public art along these bus shelters. The next priority project is Whittier Boulevard. The same thing applies to Whittier Boulevard. Truck aprons, high visibility crosswalks, pedestrian noses, friendly signal timing, reflective borders on signal heads, and where space permits, and hazmat bus facilities. Like I said, we are grateful for this plan and we're grateful that we were selected by SCAG to be able to carry this out. As a result of this, our bus shelter improvement project is taking a lot of the key things that were gotten from this plan and implementing them as we speak. The next priority project is Whittier Boulevard at Montebello Boulevard. Same treatment options, including hardened center lines, truck aprons, reflective borders. This space specifically is pretty important because this is our downtown area. We have been getting a lot more commerce in this area, which means we have a lot more pedestrians in this area. So ensuring that pedestrians are safe, including cyclists, is pretty important to us. The next priority project is Greenwood Avenue at Washington Boulevard. Same treatment options, public art, pedestrian noses, friendly signal timing. These are very large boulevards. They're very wide. They're cross-county too. I'll give you an example. Our Line 50 services Washington Boulevard. It starts off at La Mirada, and our line goes all the way to downtown LA. So it's a pretty wide boulevard. If we really think about it, this boulevard goes all the way to the ocean. So we want to ensure that people have enough time to cross. Something that was brought up and I thought was pretty nice and kind of smart was that when we do these high visibility crosswalks, that the lines are parallel to how cars travel. Why? It reduces the amount of maintenance that we have to provide because the tires are not necessarily hitting the thermoplastic as much. The neighborway is actually a really nice addition to this plan. It connects the Rio Hondo bike path and it kind of traverses the city. So what ends up happening is that we, on the map shown from right to left, we connect to the Rio Hondo bike path, which is already a very extensive network of bicycle pathways, and it kind of traverses the city, really allowing bikers coming into the city to go to different areas of commerce and do different things that they might have to do in the city, and it other way around, it allows our residents to go into the bike path with enhanced signage and speed cushions to add more safety. Neighborway treatments include the speed cushions and edge lane roads. Edge lane roads kind of give the perception of a bike path, and it kind of requires a car to center off so that there is enough room between that car passing by and that cyclist. Speed cushion, again, very important. It mitigates the speed of regular vehicles. However, public safety response times are not hindered. Alternative treatments are sharrows, bike boulevard signage, the speed cushions that we spoke about, slow streets, and chicanes. An example of a speed cushion and a edge lane road would be something here, as you could see on the presentation in front of you. And this would be an example on Cleveland app. The yellow would be the speed cushions, and the dashed lines would be the edge lane roads. Key takeaways from this plan was we really wanted to get input from a lot of other transit agencies. We interviewed transit agencies from the region, from this region specifically. LA developed very differently from the rest of the nation in terms of suburban sprawl. So we wanted to make sure that we got input from agencies that were in similar situations, as well as municipal operators, right? Because we are a municipal operator, we don't have that much jurisdiction outside except for our own city. So improvements that we could do in our city, we want to make sure that it leveled out as with other transit agencies. We were trying to find creative ways to engage the public, especially transit-dependent community. We want to engage our community's youth and take a proactive approach to improve access. The next steps, our city council has adopted this plan as of February 14th, 2024. The projects are dependent on funding. However, this does allow us to go after ATP and Safe Streets for All grants. Not only that, in terms of active transportation, but as a transit operator, we are allowed to go after 53 FTA 5307 1% discretionary funds through the bus operator subcommittee with the MTA. And this plan allows us to give stronger footing to be able to go after these funds. Thank you very much. This, again, was made possible by the help of SCAG, KTUA, and Circulate. If you have any questions, please let me know. Or feel free to ask them right now. I'm more than happy to take any questions. If you want to send me an email, my email is amachuca@montebellocity.gov. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Machuca, for your presentation. In person, I have Jan Harnick.
Thank you, Chair. I have a quick question. Could you help me understand what exactly is a truck apron?
Definitely. So let's pretend we're going to cross the street. A normal curb and gutter is around 6 to 8 inches, right? You're off the street. And then a truck apron would be, say, 2 to 3. And it's from where you would cross the street at that intersection. It's an extension of that. So cars have to take a wider turn to be able to make that right-hand turn. However, sorry, go ahead.
Is it raised?
Yes, 2 to 3 inches off the street. However, a truck can still go above that truck apron if the truck had to make that turn, but a car would have to take a wider turn.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, I'm not seeing any other hands up here. Okay, do we have any virtual? No. Okay, Mr. Machuca, thank you so much again for your presentation. Not seeing any of the hands. You certainly, committee members, you can certainly email them if you need more information. Thank you again for your time. All right, just a couple more items. Actually, just a report from the chair. Just want to remind everyone that there is the SCAG General Assembly coming up. There is still time to register for our 59th annual regional conference and General Assembly at the Marriott Desert Springs Resort and Spa. If that doesn't excite you, I'm not sure what will. I'm sure many of you have been there, and it is a great place. It's May 2nd through the 3rd, and online registration ends on April 26th. All right. At this time, I don't see Art here. So he's supposed to do a Metrolink report. We can ask Art to write a 2-page summary for us. Let's go to a staff report. I'll go to David.
Thank you, Chair. Real briefly, I just want to thank all of you who may have helped support the SCAG Scholarship Program. That deadline has passed, and we're happy to announce we had 115 applications to the program, and we're looking forward to the committee selecting up to 9 awardees, and that committee will meet on April 15th to select those scholarship awardees. And so we're appreciative of all the regional effort to support the scholarship program, and I'd like to pass it over to our Deputy Director of Planning, Annie Nam. She has an additional staff announcement.
Yeah, I just have just wanted to briefly mention that the California High-Speed Rail Authority released their draft 2024 business plan on February 9th with a 60-day public comment period through April 9th. The draft plan builds on the 2023 project update report and the 2022 business plan and demonstrates progress towards bringing true high-speed rail service to California, including near-term improvements to our regional rail system. Just some key highlights from the plan for segments of the Southern California network include plans to complete the environmental clearance for the Palmdale to Burbank segment by the summer, commitment to complete the environmental clearance for the Los Angeles to Anaheim segment by December 2025, plans to further develop funding options for Southern California, an intention to begin advanced design this year, and interest in establishing a connection point with the proposed Bright Line service. So staff are reviewing the draft plan to develop comments for the authority by April 9th deadline. And the 2024 business plan will be considered by the authority board of directors on April 11th of this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so that concludes our staff report. This is now, if members want to make any announcements, this is your opportunity to do so. Any member announcements? Okay, that's Wallace?
I just have a clarification. The SCAG meeting is April or is it May? Did you say April?
May 2nd
Oh,
and
okay.
3rd, yes.
Okay, my bad.
Yeah, no problem. Very good. I'm not seeing any other announcements. Very good. Okay, so this meeting is officially adjourned. Everyone have a great rest of your day.
I wanted to
It
introduce
would be,
any.
It would be under member announcements.
I'm
Yes.
sorry.
Yeah, no worries. If you want to go ahead and do that now, Mr. Anthony.
Yes, so the next Advanced Aviation Advisory Committee meeting on the VTOLs and the stuff that we were talking about is on June 11th. We have our meeting on June 6th. I'm wondering if it's possible we could bring back an item on the June 6th meeting to either appoint one of our members to go to the June 11th meeting or appoint a staff member to attend and participate and collect information back from us. Is that enough turnaround time to do that for the June 6th meeting?
The answer is yes.
Okay.
Might you have an interest?
Did I give it away? Is that
staff? Well, staff. We'll send a staff member.
Okay.
And certainly you have a right to join.
Well, I have a question.
member.
It is technically the report was on the item today under the Brown Act. Are we permitted to vote today to appoint somebody, or is that outside the scope of what this agenda item
Mr.
was?
Chair, if I may, the item listed on your agenda was informational only. The safest option here would be to agendize, as you suggested, Mr. Anthony, an item for the June meeting at which the committee can discuss whether to appoint a representative to represent the committee and or SCAG at the meeting that you've discussed. And it looks like Member Harnick has a comment or a question.
I just have a thought. Certainly, this staff is not our staff. It's Komea Jise's staff. So maybe this is something that Komea Jise, the executive director, can entertain at this time.
So certainly, I think that would be the preferred course of action, is to take the request from Mr. Anthony and as a member of the committee to Mr. Ajise to figure out how to address it appropriately at your June meeting.
Happy to do that. Very good. Thank you. Artie, this meeting is officially